voice you have to forget about having it heard, Allen Ginsberg. Assalamualaikum, may peace be upon us, and good morning, my dearest listeners. Welcome to another episode of RI Academy Podcast, where we discover what's beneath the surface and glide on the iceberg of knowledge with your lovely host, Alisia Evril. The quote earlier shows that how important it is to write, but not just write, but standing up to the power of words. It's been a week, hasn't it, everybody? I hope you are doing well and feeling blessed every day, because sun's shining upon us and so suits you. Alright guys, today we have a special guest. He is well known among his peers of knowledge and exceptional writing. Joining me today for discuss about creative writing in a topic titled Image RI Creativity in Writing. Please welcome Mr. Dandi Ramadhan.
Hello Alisia and good morning to all RI Academy podcast listeners. It's such a pleasure for me to be here, and of course I'm super excited because it's been a long time since I last went on air. And then I want to share my knowledge today because with everyone here, and Alisia, you can just call me Dandi to make it become closer.
That's wonderful to hear, Dandi. I love your enthusiasm today. But before we start it, do you mind if I read your CV so our listeners can get to know you better? I'm sure many of them are curious about your background.
Of course, I don't mind it at all.
Alright, that's great. I hope this helps our listeners get a better picture of who you are. And now let's get started. But wait a minute. Grab your coffee, settle in, and we'll dive deep into today's topic together. Let's start from zero, everyone.
Can I call you Rose? 'Cause you're sweet like a flower in bloom. Can I call you Rose? 'Cause your fragrance.
So, Dandi, what do you know about poetry as a whole, and how do you perceive poetry as a creative writing product?
Okay, Alisia. So, in this era, we have a timeless human-made masterpiece, and it is in the written of forms. And this arrangement of words has rims and beats, and is what we call poetry. So, poetry has been around for almost 4,000 years. It started when the first civilizations learned how to write. And then in poetry, just think about the words. You can forget about the rules, and you can share your ideas, your thoughts, and your feelings. For me, myself, Alisia, poetry is the ultimate language that everybody can use. So, if we connect poetry in modern era, especially in creative writing, it likes our favorite dish. Then, for our loved ones, then we have to add the right spice, and then a bit effort, and anything else that resonates with our hearts, minds while writing. Of course, poetry gives us freedom to write and the power to speak even louder than our voice through the words itself.
Alright, that's amazing, Dandi. So, you want to capture that writing is one of the ways for us to speak, even when we are in silence, because words are louder than voices?
Exactly what I mean. Sometimes some words are better expressed in silence in our body, but not in our mind.
Wow, your words just amaze me, Dandi. So, talking about poetry in general, do you have any preferences like favorite styles or even comfort reading when you are feeling low?
Of course I do. If we are talking about the creative writing, my to-go of this is poems. You see that poems are the one type of the poetry. What I like from the poem is You may sing without people realizing you are it was. The hidden rhymes and then the false pronunciation, stanza and alliteration, and figurative language make its poem so beautiful. And talking about my favorite, may you know who the only one? He is the only one, William Shakespeare. His masterpiece really influenced me to the point where I devoted myself to follow his way.
What line do you mean?
Maybe you have heard about this line, and this line sounds like this. Oh, swear not the moon, and then, oh, the inconsistent moon, that monthly changes in her circle of less that proves like variable.
I didn't know. Let's ask our listeners too. Alright, guys, do you guys know what our guest said? Alright, Dandy, we have surrendered. Do you mind telling us what that is?
So the phrase is from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. I'm sure that most people have heard about the story, right?
Yeah, we are familiar with the story, but what's so inspiring about the line?
You see, in those lines that Romeo did not swear of the name of moon. As the moon keeps changing, so does his heart will.
I say so. Juliet doesn't want Romeo to be a bipolar in the name of love.
That's right. And talking about the poem gain, it can be separated with the rhythmic lines. This is one of the things that makes a poem become so poetic and aesthetic. Alisia, do you mind if I take like a 4-line poem out of our session right now? Don't worry, I will include all of the listeners too.
Of course, that's great to have a live demonstration of how poem is created.
Okay. There's been undeniable truth since I've come this podcast. Nothing ever stay the same. A lovely day is promised. That's it. How about that?
That's a fantastic, Dandy. How could you make such quick wording and process it? It's so beautiful.
In general, not only for the poems but also poetry, we have to be creative. But it's not be too easy to write. Let me ask you a question. What difficulty do you often face when you are in the middle of writing something?
I guess we can ask our listeners too. Alright, guys. What difficulties we often face when we were in the middle of writing? Alright, Dandy, our answer is choices of words and how to kick off nicely.
Okay, if you are struggling with the word choices, then you have to look around you. The key to being creative is to be able to produce your environment. We could use figurative language to help us in styling such as and even imagery elements, which represent a thing with another image to show such versatility.
That's wonderful. So we have to use our environment elements to create such poetic words. Am I right?
Yes, you hear me. Later on, when have the idea which of words we want to use, we may also arrange with the rhyme and adjust and in our themes.
That's great to hear, Dandy. Alright, everyone, we will continue again after this short commercial break. Stay tuned and take a sip of your drink, everyone. Alright guys, still with us in RE Academy Podcast, One Student, One Creativity. Now we have been talking about a specific kind of poetry, which is poem, and thus one could craft a proper one. Now let's ask our guest about poetry. So Dandy, talking about poetry, Would you tell us the process on how you created such a majestic poetry, and what advice would you say to our dear listeners?
I'd like to begin with a question to all of our listeners. Now what? This is just a theoretical. You don't have to answer. My question is, what is the purpose of your writing a poem? To express your feelings, to tell a story, or just because you are bored? These are important things. The initial on what we write for. Then, based on my experience, we have to decide our targeted audience so that we can adjust to our language level. Then we begin to choose which style. There are many options, but I'd say there are two types. The stands amongst each other: free verse and limerick. In free verse, we are too free to build our own language, our words, where we don't worry to have about the rate and rhyme. While in limerick, that's the opposite. We don't have. We may build our poetry with such a gimmick and rhyme and rhythm, or in shorts, we can say it has a recognizable pattern. Next process is where we are cooking. Begin with observation, details around us. Then feel the emotions, guide words, and use phrasal or imagery words.
That's a wonderful, Dandy. So, what about the language style that you mentioned?
There are actually three ways. First one is to use metaphor or similes. This is where we compare two ideas creatively. Allow me to give you an example. Your smiles was the sunrise after my storm.
Are you serious? Alright, now tell us the other two, Dandy. Maybe you can describe the example.
Very well, since you asked, the second way is to use alliteration or resonance. What I meant here is the repetition of the sounds and the rhythm. Now watch me. Silent shadows shimmer softly. And the third way is to appeal to the sense using imagery. I'm sure you already know. This is like when we use our sight, smelling, texturing, and hearing ability. Example, the scent of rain-kissed earth. And I'd like to add, we shall begin our poetry while core thought. Something that what we actually wanted in our poetry is then stanza or groups of lines. And don't be afraid to experiment with line breaks to strengthen our feelings.
That's it. That's what I like from you. You always find a way to make complicated things to a very simple text. That's a wonderful, Dandy.
No, don't trust me yet, Alisia. I think you have forgotten something from your question.
What? What did I miss?
You asked earlier about my advice for writing poetry from my experience.
Oh my gosh, how could I forget about it? Alright, now, please, Dandy, tell us what advice would you say to our dear listeners?
Alright, but first may I take another time for take a break?
Of course, you don't have to ask first. You may, Dandy. Please, just zip it, and let the flow flip it.
Okay, did you just applying what I've said earlier? How clever you are. I like that.
Got impressed while the honorable is here, Dandy.
Haha, alright, here I to go. So everybody knows about artificial intelligence, right? Or we can say AI. The website that you regularly check every day, the tools that help you work faster and such as fast.
Of course, but why?
So we know that these tools are meant to help us in our work and daily life, right? But nowadays, it just making me sad. More and more we see that people becoming AI dependent. They cannot even think or progress without these tools, which makes us really sad. And people tend to be less creative with their ideas and feels it like the creativity in nowadays is not make us feel special. I'm not saying that I'm against AI. No. In fact, I do too. use AI to help me in daily life. But the difference is in writing is AI can make us, I mean, our words look intelligent, but AI can never give a script with a heart. Then that's the difference. So we have to be very creative and very careful and very wisdom.
Oh, such a thoughtful feeling, Daddy. I'm so touched. That's wonderful. I really like it. And with that, dear listeners, now we are at the end of today's episode of the RE Academy podcast. It's been a truly enriching session, learning not only about the art and process of crafting poetry, but also about how creativity thrives when fueled by patient observation.
Thank you so much, Alisia, and thank you to all RE Podcast Academy listeners for turning in and sharing this moment with us. Remember, writing is not just about creating what's on page. It's about putting your soul into it. It's about giving your ideas a voice that resonates beyond the boundaries of speech.
Absolutely, Dandy. I couldn't have said it better myself. You've reminded us the poetry and writing as a whole. It's more than a skill, it's a powerful medium to connect, to inspire, and to challenge the ordinary.
And don't forget, everyone, writing is a journey. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Experiment, explore, and let your emotion guide you. Your creativity is uniquely yours. Embrace it.
That's wonderful, Dandy. To all our listeners, I hope you have gained as much as insight and inspiration as I have today. Take what you have learned here and start experimenting with your own poetry or writing. Who knows? You might discover a voice within you that's been waiting to speak.
And as I said earlier, don't be afraid to observe, feel, and create. Poetry is not about rules; it's about freedom.
Once again, Dandy, thank you very much to be our guest today and sharing your invaluable knowledge. It's been a privilege to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Alisia. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into another episode of RE Academy Podcast. Until next time, keep writing, keep creating, and keep believing in the power of your words. Take care, stay inspired, and as always, may peace be upon us. Goodbye and thank you.
Bye, everyone.